is up, dudes and dudettes? It is me, Sugi JRPG here, and once again, I'm gonna be reviewing these cult classics from the olden times, and this one is called Skies of Arcadia, which was originally released on Dreamcast, and then re-released a couple of years later on GameCube under the name of Skies of Arcadia Legends, which also included a lot of new content and some balance changes compared to the original version on Dreamcast. Now this review will be based on the GameCube version of the game, which is emulated on Dolphin on PC. I also am using this HD texture pack created by Big Head. Big shoutouts to this guy. He has been working like 5 years on this texture pack. It's still not done, but what it does, it basically redoes the textures for the 3 main characters on the game, and also like completely overhauls the menu and the start screen and the minimap, among other textures inside the game. It's still not like 100% done, but it definitely makes the game look a lot more HD than the original version on GameCube. Also, this mod comes along with an optional widescreen, and it has some cheat engine which allows you to like change your character's damage to 999 or health and stuff like that. So basically that's pretty cool stuff. And so let's kind of get into a bit about the story and the premise without too many spoilers. I always like my reviews very spoiler free, and then I kind of talk about the combat, the exploration, the soundtrack, graphics, all of these other stuff which you may be interested in. So the story is about air pirates known as Blue Rogues, and our main character is called Vice, and the main female character is called Aika, and they are basically working on Blue Rogues, which are kind of like essentially Robin Hood-esque type of sky pirates. They're not really robbing people. I mean, I guess they're just fighting against the main bad guys in the series, which is the Valuant Empire, which is kind of like this expansionist tyrannical entity which basically wants to take over the world, and they are in military conflict with another continent, which there's like 6 continents which are named after different moons, and these moons play a big part in the sort of like the lore and the story. And in the beginning, Vice and Aika meet this girl known as Fina, who is basically a Sylvite, this ancient race and survivor who is tasked to basically collect these 6 moon crystals before the Valiant Empire gets hands on them and destroys the world. So basically that's kind of like the main premise of this story, and then they obviously go on exploring the world. You get different airships and stuff like that, and there's forms of character development, not too massive though. In the game story, I mean, I think it's refreshing in terms of its setting. Like there's not really that many like air pirate or pirate-paced JRPG games out there, although there's not a lot of like that many pirate-esque types of things outside from like artistic point of view. Yeah, the characters look like they are pirates, but like aside from that, there's not really like a lot of pillaging and things like that. I mean, enemies are maybe doing that, but basically the Vice and the main crew, they are kind of goody issues, so they're not like really engaging on this stealing and robbing stuff. Now that we're kind of like, summarized a bit of the story, I mean, the game is pretty long and there's a lot of like side plots and side quests and things like that you can get to explore. So the cool thing about the game is there's 2 different types of combat. You have the traditional JRPG combat, and then you have ship battles. And I always thought, like, when is Square going to be doing like airship battles on Final Fantasy? Like that, open door has been there for a very long time, and the airship battles are very different. It's kind of like planning your 4 next moves ahead, and there's these like trajectories, green, yellow, red, which indicates like when the enemy attacks. So it's kind of like battleships, if you know that board game. Well, it's a game. It's a board game, and it's kind of like similar to that. And you get to like have 2 different ships inside the game, which you get to like go in combat. There will be other ships you will be able to fly inside the game, but 2 will be in combat. And there's like different abilities and like different guns, and you can like equip like different types of cannons, missiles, torpedoes, these types of things to your ship, and also change the crew, which will affect the statistics of the ship. The ship battles are kind of easy once you get the hang out of them, and you can just like pretty easily like predict and play it safe, and it will be fairly easy after a while, especially when you get the second ship, which is very, very overpowered in a lot of ways. Now, but it's definitely like very refreshing that you have, these both side of battles, and they kind of compensate each other because neither of them are like super complex type of combat systems. I mean, you have your traditional elements, you have the red, purple, silver, green, blue, and these are kind of like, fire and, wind and stuff like that. But they kind of like work in a different way in this game than they do in a lot of other JRPG games that I have played in the past. It's kind of wonky element system, I'm not gonna lie. There's like things that when you battle, you get experience after battle and level up. You also are leveling up your different magic traits. So when you are wielding your weapon, you can change the element of your weapon inside the battle. So it can be like a red weapon or it can silver weapon. And basically, when you end the battle, you're gaining experience on the weapon that the element you basically are wielding. So if I'm wielding end of the battle, the silver element, then I'm getting silver experience, and that will basically give me magic under the silver umbrella. So this was a really cool system. It kind of reminded me remotely a bit of these systems in Final Fantasy IX, how the abilities were learned from the weapons, but it's a bit different here, obviously, and I think it's kind of unique. It's not like the most perfect model. It could be using some tweaks if it was like redone in the modern day, but I did enjoy it, and it actually is not too hard to basically maximize one of the magic levels very early on if you know certain type of strategies. Now, also one of the good things what people obviously love about this game and why it's one of the cult classics is that you have this classical world map, and you're basically using an airship to go around at different altitudes. You can find these different discoveries like shipwrecks and things like that, and you can basically take them to the Merchants Guild, and they basically pay you a gold for finding these discoveries. So there's a lot of things to find in the world. There's like flying ships, which might be battles, or they might be vendors, or they might be guest givers. So there's like different elements that you can find inside the world, which you're going to be exploring. The world is very locked in the beginning. As you progress through, you can get through different types of winds and altitudes, and your ship basically gets upgrades in a story wise. And so there's element of free roaming inside the game. Sometimes you're not able to return back to the very beginning of the game to collect certain chests or other collectibles and things like that. But in a lot of ways, there is an open world element to this game, and then there's a lot of linearity in some ways as well. But it's like really one of the best things which I liked about it when I was originally had the game back on GameCube. And then you also get to build your own base. So there's a homestead system, and you get to collect different crew members on this island. And in the island, basically, you get to build different buildings, shops where you can buy different weapons or different flasks or other items, or different types of guns and cannons to your ship. And based on who you basically recruit, some of them might give you certain types of quests, which can give you very valuable items or final weapons. And there's just a lot of lore in these side characters. And the side characters in general in this game are fairly well done. All of them have unique models and things like that, and they don't feel copy pasted over. And that's something that I gotta praise about this game, that there's a lot of unique models in it when you really look at it on a hindsight. A lot of other games have a lot of distinctively the main characters, and then you have other characters which you can see oh, that looks like an NPC. But there's a lot of fun about collecting the crew. Some of them are hidden in very mysterious ways, and some of them have certain things that you need to fill in so they will join your crew. Some will ask money, some will have you to have a very high reputation. So there's a reputation system inside the game which you can improve in different ways. Usually it's answering these questions which happen in the main game. And this rating will enable to you get a lot of different things down the line. Also, the dialogue in certain shops will change. If you have really bad reputation, they will say bad things, and if you have really good high reputation, they will basically praise you for visiting your shop. In terms of the soundtrack, I think the soundtrack is obviously one of the bigger highlights of the game as well. One of the negatives I would say about it is that there are dungeons and certain shops which share the same track. So some of the dungeon tracks play on maybe 5 same dungeons, or maybe 3 or 4, and it gets a bit redundant, to be honest, especially if you're revisiting these dungeons for certain treasure chests, because there are a lot of like completion and extra stuff that you can do inside the game. But the soundtrack is really good. I like the main combat music. It's probably one of the best tracks. The boss music, though, is not that great. I don't know why. Maybe the main battle music should have been the boss music. But whatever. And in terms of like how the game is like long, there's a lot of playability in this game. It can be taking up to plus 60 hours to do like 100% run. There's no New Game Plus. Obviously, it's this old game. Obviously, back then we didn't have New Game Plus. It's a relatively new thing still. I think maybe in 2010 we got our first game in New Game Pluses. If somebody actually knows, let me know in the comments. But ultimately, it took me around, 52 hours to complete the game. That includes doing all the side mission bosses from the bounty list, then collecting all crew members. Then I obviously did a fair amount of discoveries and side quests. But if you really want to go like a full 100% run, you can really squeeze out more than 60 hours from this game. Now, as final thoughts, I think the game has, aged pretty well when we compare it to counterpart, let's say in PS2. Those games don't look very good to this day. Yeah, Skies of Arcadia still has certain problems, like the camera is kind of iffy, and yeah, there could have been like option to basically skip some cutscenes and things like that. Some of like small quality of life changes, which we would like to see if they ever would do like a HD remaster or something. But honestly, I maybe would be more interested in seeing like a remake or a sequel. I mean, they kind of narrowed and explored the whole world already inside the game, and in a lot of ways, when you look at the world map, there's a lot of like blank stuff. There's like literally just air there, nothing, no continents, nothing, no cities. So if I would like redo the game, I would maybe shuffle around a bit of the party system and add more continents to the game, and maybe skim from certain elements inside the game. Like certain battles can last up to 30 minutes if you're being really tedious way, and healing and attacking. So yeah, some of the stuff like was way too long in terms of battles and ship battles, and also some side bosses which I encountered. But obviously if you do them later on, then they might be a bit faster. But that's pretty much my breakdown of the game. Obviously, I still recommend it to a lot of people, and maybe you're watching this video from 1 or 2 years from now, and there's some new versions on the HD texture pack, which includes a lot more new stuff. But hey, who knows? Maybe one day Sega will be up to the task to do some type of a HD port on PC for us. But it's hard to say because, Sega hasn't really done that much, like old games and make them HD again. I don't think that's their thing. I think Bandai and perhaps some other entities in Japan have been more akin to that, like Square. But hey, let's be hopeful again. It's definitely one of these cult classic games that a lot of people still care about and like. And it was an enjoyable ride. It was maybe a bit tedious towards the end, and maybe that's because when I first time had the game, I almost played it through and I literally didn't make it through the last boss. This time I went pretty easily. But I'm not a kind of guy who plays games twice. It's not my thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and obviously if you want to see more classic JRPG games from GameCube, PS2, I got a lot of those coming up on the channel, so stay tuned by subscribing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.